If you're in your late 30s or 40s and you've started to notice that you're gaining some weight or having a harder time losing weight, you're definitely not alone. This is a really common thing that I hear from a lot of women. And today I wanted to break down what to actually do about this, what's going on, and how you can feel your best at any age. I'm not saying how to look like you were in your 20s, how to get your body back after kids. None of that. You're in a different phase in life. We're not always going back to a different place, but it's really optimizing where you are now, feeling amazing, being able to do the things that you want to do in life, and also feel really confident, whatever that's going to look like for you now. So, first, let's talk about what's going on here. Again, this is a really common thing that I hear from a lot of women when they're in perimenopause or even before. So, there's sort of this window that is pre-perimenopause. Before we're officially in perimenopause, we enter the stage that's been classified as the late reproductive stage. Basically, what it means is things are changing before your period gets super wonky, before your hormones are completely out of whack. Things do start to change. And for most women, this is in our late 30s, early 40s that this is happening. One of the really common symptoms that comes up in this phase is starting to gain weight, or not necessarily even noticing a shift in the number on the scale, but feeling a little bit puffier, feeling like clothes are a little bit tighter, maybe having an extra layer on you is another way that I hear a lot of people describe it. Sort of like this, like, there's just this layer that has developed over my entire body. It can be variable. Sometimes that can be a sign of something else going on. It can show up in other times in life. We can have inflammation going on. We're looking really puffy. But again, it's just sort of like, it's not really this like squishy puffiness or retaining a huge amount of water where it's very obviously something else. Just sort of this vague, okay, I'm gaining some weight. I'm having a harder time with this. That's what we're talking about today. And I'm going to walk you through sort of what we can start to think about and what to check and make sure that you're doing. And most likely what will happen is that you'll be able to find a good balance for yourself through this. So first, some things to not do. These are some common mistakes that I hear a lot of women doing that I've personally done myself. I've learned from experience. So some mistakes to help you avoid. The first thing is not working out hard all the time. So this is a trap that we can fall into and something that might have worked for us in the past. So maybe in our 20s, we could just work our butt off after indulging for, a celebration or something. And boom, we're back to our normal place and we're good. Now, what starts to happen in this, again, early perimenopausal, beautiful stage is that our body actually becomes more sensitive to stress and to cortisol changes. Cortisol is not just a stress hormone, it's our waking hormone also, but it can start to get a little bit wacky here, and our body can become more sensitive to these changes. We may also have more stress on our plate. Arguably, in this phase, a lot of us have, jobs and careers and a lot of life things going on, kids, family obligations, so much. And so arguably maybe there's more just stress and more things on our plate also during this phase, but also we become more sensitive to it. So when we're working out really hard, what can happen is that our body is just taking this all in as stress. Exercise is a stress on our body. It's a good stress. We call it hormetic stress, which means that our body can become stronger from it. It can adapt. And that's the beauty of exercise. We're making ourselves do something hard and we're able to rise up from that and be able to get stronger, get more endurance, all of that. But sometimes more stress is just more stress. So we put this good stress on our body and our body's just like, I'm even more stressed out, and can have a pattern of just responding to that stress, which can be holding on to body fat. Basically, our body is getting this sense, this is an emergency. This is something that's happening that we need to go into survival mode. And one of those adaptations that our body does is holding on to body fat. Because if this was war or, starvation, there's no food available, we're, in a place that isn't safe, it's really smart for our body to hold on to extra body fat so that if food is not coming soon, we have something to live off of. Of course, now in our modern day, we don't need to live off of our body fat usually. We have food that is plentiful and readily available for the most part. And so this adaptation isn't really serving us anymore and can just be frustrating because we feel like we're putting on more body fat despite working out even harder, despite being more diligent, working even harder, doing more than we ever have before. So the adaptation, the change that we can make based off of this would be slowing things down. You can still definitely do cardio and do HIIT classes, whatever you enjoy doing. There's a place for that, but it's not doing it all the time. It's being really mindful about when you're doing it, how you're feeling before you're doing it. If you are exhausted and you're forcing yourself to go to a HIIT workout, I can pretty much guarantee you that your body's not going to be happy with that. Your body is going to feel really stressed out because it's having to push extra hard to get you through that, compared to going for a walk, especially out in nature, something that feels restorative and relaxing while moving your body. That those two things are going to be very different and give you a very different response. So while we kind of think about, I'm burning more calories the more intense the workout is, that's not actually the case, and can lead to your body just being too stressed out. So taking things down a notch or finding a good balance of different things. The second mistake that I see really commonly is not eating enough. Fasting is very popular still. We hear about it in the biohacking world, and there are positive benefits that do come from fasting. Yes, I'm not arguing with that. But again, if our body is really stressed out already, and we're now taking away that food, of course, our body is, again, going into that starvation pattern or getting that sense, oh, we don't always have food available. I don't have food in the morning when I'm starting my day. I need to respond in a way that is going to get me through my day without nourishment. And oftentimes that can look like our stress hormones picking up the slack and really, maybe even being beyond what we need. And, our body can just have all the wrong signals going on still. So while we want to be mindful about what we're eating and how many calories we're taking in, that is a part of the equation still. I really recommend against fasting for most women, especially in this phase, because usually it is going to backfire and either make you overeat later or feel super stressed out, or farther down the road, your body is just going to get, those patterns all messed up. So I really recommend against that, and really nourishing your body, giving your body the food that it needs, the nutrients that it needs, and especially in the morning when most people, again, that's like the most common time. Oh, I just skipped breakfast. I'm not even hungry. Well, you're living off of stress hormones then. If instead you're nourishing your body and giving your body food, it's like, oh, wait, look, okay, I've got the protein I need. My blood sugar is balanced. Cool. Like, yeah, we'll still have cortisol going up to get us through our day, but it's not going to be out of normal range. Our body knows that it has the fuel to get you through your day. So very important. And lastly, in general, I kind of touch on it, but following the fads and following the biohacking things that are not specific to women. So that goes along with a lot of things, cold plunging and really intense breath work. Again, I am not saying that these things are not helpful and beneficial. They could be absolutely beneficial. And especially if you have done a lot of work for your nervous system, you're like, I am so not stressed out at all. Go for that. But again, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I really identify with this, I'm like gaining weight despite my efforts, your body's probably getting the sense that it's just overworked. And so doing more of those things, again, could just add more stress to your body rather than, challenging it to adapt and get stronger and better. So be really mindful about how you're treating yourself. Be mindful about the stress that your body is taking in. Sometimes I'll recommend people do what I call stress inventory. Write down all the things that your body could be perceiving as stress. The mental, emotional stress, the, work stress, the family obligations, the exercise, the fasting, whatever things that have been on your plate, all the stressors that could go into your body, and really look at that and go, what can I take off of this list? What's really something that I can't do anything about? And even the things that you can't do anything about, what can you do to then change your body's perception of them or be able to, restore afterwards? Meaning, okay, maybe you're not in a position where you can quit your busy job, or you're in a busy season in your job that you love and it really lights you up, but it's also very intense in certain seasons. Then what can you do to take care of yourself to make sure that you're able to recover from that. Is it saying no to certain social obligations, even though you really love those social things too, maybe pulling back from those? Basically just being mindful of how you can restore yourself and really give your body what it needs, and so that it isn't getting into this crazy stress pattern. Okay, back to the weight thing. I know I'm getting kind of on this, but again, this is something that's so common that I see from so many women in this phase. And so that's why I'm making sure that we're aware of that stress piece. Then now let's move into what to do. So what things can you do now to start to get a handle on your weight and to really understand more of what's going on, what's kind of feeding this thing that's happening in your body? So the first thing is to start tracking your food. I don't recommend this for a long period of time. I know that tracking food can feel stressful. For some of us, it can be triggering to feel like we're micromanaging things, to over worry about what we're eating. That's not the point here. It's really to get information. So starting to track your macronutrients and micronutrients, if, depending on what tracker you're using. This could be something free, like Chronometer is a great one. MyFitnessPal is another one, where you just start to track your food for even just a few days and see how much protein are you getting, how much fiber are you getting, how much fat and carbohydrates. You can track hydration here too if you're not sure if you're hydrating well. Hydration is very important also. So you can also look at that. And with that, you have the information to know, okay, what am I doing now? Be able to sort of analyze that information, and then what can I do to maybe shift things? Some things that are really helpful for most women are to get enough protein and to get enough fiber. These are really important nutrients to, again, fuel your body, give it the right signals, keep blood sugar steady, support detoxification, pooping and getting bad things out of your system. These are really important. So those are some things to be, pay extra attention to. For protein intake, ideally, we're getting about 60 to 100% of our body weight in pounds in ounces of protein. So I'll say that again, 60 to 100% of our weight in pounds in ounces of protein each day. So an example for a 140-pound person, that would be 85 to 140 grams of protein. So you can calculate that by taking your weight and multiplying it by 0.6, you do 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, and 100% is easy because it's the same number. And just look at what that range is. Now, our goal is going to be a little bit different depending on what our life looks like. If you are an athlete, if you are someone trying to put on muscle, really trying to, lean out, you're really active, I would probably aim for more of it, like 100%. So, the amount of grams per day would be the same as your body weight in pounds. For someone who is less active, maybe, not as intense with exercise, or even just starting out, you're like, I don't eat any protein. I do not like a lot of protein. Give me a starting number. Then I'd aim for at least 60%. So again, 140 pounds, that'd be about 85 grams of protein each day, divided into meals and snacks. I know that number can feel huge for a lot of us, but it's really not that hard to get once you start having a template for yourself of what you need to get there. Ideally, for each meal, for most of us, again, like 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal is usually what that looks like, especially at breakfast. Again, breakfast is so important to give our body the signal that it's safe, that it has the energy it needs to go through the day and really stabilize your blood sugar. So that's where I usually say maybe like 30 to 35 grams of protein in the morning with breakfast. Even if you are a lower weight person, maybe getting a little bit more at breakfast. So again, your body is just really set up to be happy throughout the day. Again, fiber is also really important. This is one that is not as much in the limelight because fiber is maybe sort of boring to a lot of people, or also sort of confusing. We're like, what do we have? Like, where is fiber? I don't know. Like a lot of us are maybe like not sure. We don't want to ask. Where do we get fiber? Mostly we're getting this from plants, vegetables, fruit, legumes, nuts and seeds. These are all great sources of fiber. And ideally, each day, we're getting about 30 to 35 grams of fiber. This, again, the easiest way to figure this out would be tracking your food and starting to see when you put in food, again, on one of these apps and you look up, okay, this is the food I'm eating. what's the average for that? You can start to see, oh, wow, okay, it has this much fiber. You can also Google high fiber foods, get a list, and kind of just see the rundown of some of those. Because sometimes it's surprising. We think, oh, I'm going to eat a salad that's super high fiber, where some of those foods might not actually be as high fiber as things like avocado, for example. That's one that I was surprised at when I first learned that avocado is actually a great source of fiber. When you are eating avocado, it just feels like pure fat, right? But it actually is a great source of fiber. So being strategic with those things, learning from what you're already eating, what you already enjoy. And then again, how can you bump that up a little bit to be around this goal? Adding things like chia seeds, flax seeds can be a great way to easily bump them up, either in like a chia pudding or something like that, or just adding it to a smoothie, adding it to a yogurt bowl, to whatever else can be a great way to just add in a little extra protein or fiber. And then looking at your overall calories is also important. A lot of us, I feel like, went through the era of just thinking it was calories in, calories out, and it's as simple as that. We know now it's more complicated than that because our body can have these adaptations and can respond differently depending on our environment and what's going on in our body. But calories are still important, and how much we're burning compared to how much calories we're taking in. If we are in calorie excess, meaning we're eating more calories than we're burning, we are going to have more to put somewhere. So we definitely can gain weight. If we are in a calorie deficit, meaning we're eating less than we're burning, then we are most likely going to lose weight. Now, again, weight is not just the perfect end all be all. Our weight is made up of our bones and our water in our body and our fat and our muscles. So losing weight is not always the goal because we don't want to be losing muscle, which can also happen when we're in a deficit if we're not being smart. So all to say, be mindful about your calories, see what you're taking in and just see, wow, is this really excessive compared to what I am burning? You can even look up your basal metabolic rate if you want to go extra with this and just see what a basal metabolic rate is what you're burning, just living and breathing, what your average calorie burn. And then you can also look up there are some calculators where you can also do it based on your activity level. If you're moderately active, very active, and it can give you an average of calories, and you can kind of compare that again, that compared to what you're consuming, and just see if it's on point, if it's excessive, where you stand. I wouldn't put too much emphasis on this because in this conversation, I'm not talking about you need to lose 50 pounds because you are completely overweight. I'm talking about that like you've been in a generally healthy weight and it's just sort of like, the scale is creeping up a little bit. You're noticing a little bit extra. You most likely don't have to worry too much about being in a huge calorie deficit as long as you're not in an excess. So again, be mindful, see like if you're getting way too many calories. But if you're just generally in the same ballpark, then most likely you'll notice a positive shift without having to be too restrictive with your calories. The next thing to check out would be your body composition. So I mentioned that weight is a really common measurement that we're using. We, tend to have a scale at home. We're measuring our weight, and that's what we use to track our body. But our weight is made up of so many different things. And in reality, most of us, I don't think, actually care about our weight. I don't know about you, but I don't walk into a room and go, she is definitely 140 pounds. That is insane. We don't actually care about what our weight is, what anyone else's weight, but what we care about is how we feel and how we look, how we maybe look in our clothes, compared to how we used to be, whatever, like that's what we actually care about. And so just using weight as a measurement can be a mismatch. So one thing that you can try is looking at your body composition. There are different ways of doing this. One of the easiest ways is to get a body composition scale at home. Basically, this is used as, electrical signals, bioimpedance to go through your body and get a sense of how much fat do you have, how much muscle do you have, and be able to track changes here. Now, these are not going to be 100% accurate, but they're generally, as long as you're using the same scale, it will be able to give you a fairly good estimate and help you with tracking. So again, if you're like, oh, my weight is a little bit up, you can track your body composition and then be able to say, oh yeah, it is a little bit, more fat. Let me do some changes and let me see as I lose weight, is it the fat that I'm losing or am I just losing muscle, which is not ideal. For most people to have the body composition that they want, to have the appearance they want, we want muscle and maybe a little bit less fat or a good balance of that. Other ways to look at your body composition would be there are other body composition machines like InBody that you can purchase or go to a location that has these. And these are going to be sort of a step up from the body composition scales, and they're going to be much more accurate, pretty close to the gold standard, which the gold standard would be to do a DEXA scan. You may be familiar with a DEXA scan when it comes to bone health. That's usually when women are doing it to assess their bone density, which it also does that. But you can also do a DEXA scan to look at your overall body composition. And there are services that do this either at a certain location or there are mobile ones where you can do a DEXA scan to really be able to see, okay, exactly what is your percentage of fat versus muscle? What is your bone density also, even, water content, and be able to start to understand what that weight is coming from. Because again, we probably don't care about our actual weight on the scale. And that is something that you could do, even just quarterly, depending on what your goals are, what you're changing, to be able to get a sense of like, do I actually have an excess of fat or, or what or not? Sometimes it is interesting to see that it's like actual water retention versus fat. And as we make changes again, seeing that we're building lean muscle can be a great thing and actually could make our weight go up and make us feel like, oh my gosh, I'm actually gaining weight when I'm doing this. Well, if your muscle is going up and your fat is not, or your fat is actually going down, that's a great thing. I would love to be, 200 pounds or whatever it's going to be, as long as I am looking the way that I want to look and feel the way that I want to feel, right? The weight doesn't actually matter. It's just a number. So there's some things to consider. Again, to get more information about what is actually going on in your body, what are you putting into your body, what are the amounts, and then to be able to start to make these tweaks. Again, oftentimes increasing the protein, increasing the fiber are going to be super helpful here. Decreasing the stress, getting more, more in our life that is helping us mitigate the stress also, whether those be stress relieving activities or changing our exercise, things like that. We didn't really talk about it, but weight training is going to be really important also, putting on that lean muscle just for our longevity and our well-being, as well as having a nice body composition that most of us like the appearance of. Having muscle is going to be helpful. And to do that, we need to be working our muscles and lifting something heavy. So having some weight training in there, being mindful about the balance of our high intensity cardio exercise compared to slower pace things, general movement in our day, that general movement, just walking and being busy in our day can actually really add up to burning a lot of calories. Again, we're kind of comparing that calorie burn versus calorie intake. Another piece that I'd be mindful about too, that I didn't really mention when it comes to tracking food, but being mindful about the sugars, the added processed stuff that ends up being in our diet. That could be another area. I just kind of like add this as a tip, where this is another common aha moment that I have when I'm talking with my patients about this. Are we relying on, quick snacks like protein bars or, eating more chips than we maybe need to be, things like that. It's another great way to be aware. It does not mean that you can't ever have a convenience food when you're busy on the go, whatever. But being mindful about that could be something that's holding you back, and making a small shift there, maybe choosing a beef jerky or a meat stick, or, if you like, cottage cheese or something like that. I mean, there's so much cottage cheese conversation on social media and things nowadays. But all to say, maybe there's a different option that you could choose that you also really enjoy, that is maybe less processed, has more protein in it, might keep you fueled a little bit better, keep your blood sugar a little bit more steady. That could also just be really helpful with getting you what you need, giving your body the signals that it is safe. It's all good. It has what it needs. That could be the tipping point to help that extra fluff go away, to help you feel more energetic, to feel more motivated to get movement in your day and just feel clearer and more like yourself, more like the person that you want to be. So I hope you found this helpful. Please reach out to me if you have any questions about this. If you need any clarification, feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from you and just get your take on this. But again, these are the things that I'm really seeing mostly from women in my practice, from my friends, myself. And I think that there's a lot that we can do here to really get back to where we want to feel without as much work as we think that it's going to take.